Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I am very excited for today's episode. We have one of my heroes on the podcast today. I want to welcome Nicole Shiffler. So, Nicole, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. So, let me tell you how I know Nicole, because she's somebody that all of you are going to want to know. As most of my listeners know, y'all know that what the first year of homeschooling was really rough for us, and we ended up moving towards the unschooling, eclectic unschooling, which is child-led learning. So for those that are new to the program, unschooling is child-led learning, and that's kind of the direction that we moved when we started that after that first year. And when I started unschooling, I told my good friend who homeschools as well that we were thinking about unschooling. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, there's this influencer on Instagram that I follow every single day. You've got to look her up." So I literally pulled out my phone, looked her up, and lo and behold, we had a mutual friend, which was so crazy that we had one friend in common. So I added Nicole as a friend and then reached out, and over the course of the last couple of years, we've gotten to know each other and finally got to
Yeah.
meet in May, which I was a little
Yes.
starstruck. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So the coolest thing though, my friends, is how there are people that you're like, they're one way, like on Instagram, and then when you meet them, they're a different way. That's not Nicole and her family. Like, what you see on Instagram is 100% what you get.
Oh, you're
And
nice, Janae.
I'm serious. Like, just Nicole's, like Nicole. I'm speaking third person about you, and here you go. But just your kids are just great and kind and sweet to each other, and just a great family and a loving family, and ridiculously smart kids and talented. And
Oh,
so everything that you see on Instagram with Nicole is 100% what you get, which
oh,
I
thanks,
love. So
Janae.
anyway, so I'm so excited to have
Thank
you on.
you.
And now I won't talk about you in
Boy,
third person anymore.
that
so
was quite the introduction. That is so sweet of you.
so I want to talk, Nicole, because you started, let's talk about the homeschooling journey. First, you have 7 children. So
Yes.
talk about
Yep.
your family a little bit.
Okay, so 7 kids. We never really planned to homeschool. I think when I first became a mom, I just did whatever I saw other people do. And we lived in Pennsylvania, then we lived in Virginia for a while. We now currently live in Naples, Florida. But I just started doing really what I think a lot of society does, which is just copy what mainstream is, right? I was feeding my kids juice as toddlers, and then after a while, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be. Or, I was doing all the things that I saw um, culture doing, right, with their kids.
Yeah.
They watch cartoons, they do this and that. um, my sister actually started to tell me about some homeschooling books that she was reading, and she would call me and just tell me about them. And I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. At this point, my oldest was 3. And so I started to get books on my own at the library, and I just started reading very basic books about
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling as an alternative. And I started to get a little bit more and more excited about something different. So that's kind of where I began getting interested in homeschooling. Do you want me to keep going on about my journey? I can go ahead
Yeah,
if you
no,
want.
yeah, and and so for those of you listening, so your oldest daughter is 18 and
Yes.
in college, and then your
Yeah.
youngest is
Yeah. So yeah, my oldest is 18. And she's actually 18 and a sophomore at college, which I think we're going to talk about that in a minute. My youngest is about to turn 5. So we have a big family, and I just had I wanted to give something different to my kids.
yeah.
So I started to do a little bit more research um, into that. So what started with me looking into homeschooling books, and I would start to bring it up to my husband, who was like, there's no way we're homeschooling our kids. We're not going to have weird kids that are homeschooled. So I was, struggling with that. Well, he is looking at this like we would make our kids really crazy if we choose to homeschool. But I just kind of kept getting drawn to this idea of there was something different.
Yeah.
So that's how the introduction of homeschool came to me. It was really when I was a very young mom and I only had 2 kids. And looking back, little did I know that I would not only choose to homeschool, but I would choose to do a really unusual style of homeschooling that nobody was doing, which we're going to talk about in a second. And that really that decision to homeschool and to homeschool, do this child-led natural learning, unschooling, whatever you want to call it, that would really start to shape our family and all of the decisions that we would make. So it really, those really early years as a mom have transformed where we are now.
I love that. I love that. So when you started homeschooling with your oldest, did you start child-led learning right away, or did you kind of morph into that? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I happened upon, I think this is what happens to a lot of people that are looking into child-led learning or unschooling. Um, if you get a hold of any John Holt books, he starts to change the way that you see your children. He starts to change the way that you see the way that humans learn. And so I started to read some like basic homeschooling books. Were very gentle and, we're pretty much going to replicate school at home. So then I got, like I said, I started to read these John Holt books and I just thought, this is not what I was expecting. This is completely changing how I'm seeing raising my kids. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with John Holt, who's an American educator, phenomenal guy. He taught for years, wrote a lot of books. He wrote the book, How Children Learn, How
Mhm.
Children Fail. Those were two of his most famous books. But what John Holt did, he then leaves the school system. He's so distraught with what public school is doing and how it's killing that natural learning instinct in kids.
Mhm.
And then he really sets off on this journey. I mean, this is the late 70s. He starts off on this journey to start teaching people about homeschooling. Not, we're going to try to make public school better. He pretty much says in all of his writings, there is nothing we can do. The
Yeah.
system is broken. You need to get your kids out of the system, which is everything that you're doing, Janae, which is incredible. You need to get
Thank
your
you.
kids out of the system and start transformation at home. And so I would say, in a nutshell, his books teach that children who are just like us are innately driven to learn. They are innately designed to want to learn more, to be curious. And if left alone enough, they will do those things. They will do the research. They will do the work to
Yes.
satisfy those curiosities instead of having an adult tell you what to do all day. So my big shift went from dabbling in homeschooling, that sounds interesting, to John Holt just blew me away. And what is this unschooling? So when I started homeschooling 15 years ago. Yes, there were other homeschoolers, but I did not fit in. Once I got on the John Holt train, there was nobody doing it. I
No.
started blogging about 14 years ago, and my blog was called The Sleepy Time Gal. I blogged every morning, and I started to document how I was taking what was just a principle about child-led learning and unschooling from John Holt, and I was trying to make it systematized in our home. And so I blogged every day about what that looked like in our home. The more I started to do that, it began to build momentum. And there was really just this fire within me that I just thought, this feels so right for my kids. And if I can just do a little plug for one of my favorite books, Peter Gray's Free to Learn, phenomenal book. I had already
Yes.
chosen to homeschool and unschool by the time he wrote that book. But that book propelled what I already saw happening with my own kids, my 5, 6, 7, 8 year old, whatever they were doing, in giving them the unstructured time, giving them the resources, the tools, acting more like a mentor. And we can talk more about that in a minute, but just beginning to do those things, that really held me up. I mean, Peter Gray has no idea. His book really sustained me because it was a really lonely beginning for years and
Yeah.
years. Nobody was unschooling. There was like one blog that had like quotations from John Holt, but I didn't see anybody doing it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even fit into a lot of the homeschooling groups because it was like, well, what did you do today? And, how are you doing on your testing? And I would say, well, we don't do testing. And so I felt like in the beginning, it was a very emotionally challenging time where I just had to just like cry on my husband's shoulder and just say, I feel so strongly about this. And on a side note, reading the book Free to Learn out loud to my husband really helped solidify his supporting of homeschooling and unschooling.
I love that.
So that
I love
book
that.
that book was really transformative. But
Which
yeah,
actually, and Dr. Gray's actually going to be coming on the podcast here in a few
I
weeks. So
know.
I'm very excited about
I
that.
wish there could
So,
be three of us and I could just sit and listen to him. But
well, I might just have to have you on. I don't know. Well,
but yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think it's interesting too because when you say, "Oh, I unschool my kids," people automatically, I think, go to. Well, this is what I did at the beginning when I heard the term unschooling and child-led learning. I'm like, "Oh, I imagine like Lord of the Flies with loincloths
Yes.
and I've said this before, like it's not Lord of the Flies. It's more like Phineas and Ferb. We're like, what are we going to do today? This is what we're
Right.
going to do. Now we're going to build all these,
Exactly. That's
and
great.
but yet people still see it as the most extreme form of
Yeah.
homeschooling, and oftentimes we don't fit in with the typical I'm doing it school at home with my
Yeah.
kids,
Yes.
and what do I do because they're fighting me and they don't
Yeah.
want to do math and they don't want to, and you're like, well, how about you let them do some of the things they like to do,
Yeah.
just throwing that
Exactly.
out there, so
Exactly. Well, and I think, just like I said, I blogged for years about our journey with unschooling, and then that turned into my Instagram account. And just hearing from women over the years, the things that they struggle with, everybody's biggest struggle is they freak out. Okay, I've pulled my child out of school. Now what? Now we need to do all these
yeah,
subjects. And, even, and I think I feel like in our homeschooling, I've tried to tie in a lot of eclectic principles that I like from, unschooling approaches. I love a lot of things about Montessori, which is raising an independent child. There's a lot I love about Waldorf education, the creativity and the imagination in the child. There's a lot that I like about Charlotte Mason. But I just think of, Charlotte Mason, there are like 11 subjects you're supposed to cover in a day. If I were to wake up as somebody who likes order and structure, which is another myth, that if you unschool, that you're just letting your kids sit around eating bonbons and playing video games all day,
right,
that does
yeah,
not happen in my home. And so I think I would be totally stressed out if the expectation was, well, if you're choosing to homeschool, you better be covering all the subjects every day. That is not how children learn.
mm-mm.
And that is not how we learn and grow. You and I, when we have time for ourselves, we're working on a hobby, we're not saying, okay, we're going to take 10 minutes, to put into dinner and then 10 minutes to garden and 10 minutes to rake. No, that's not life. So one of the things I loved about the whole approach to child-led learning and the way that I'm trying to raise my kids, and I really see the fruits of it, is that we are training our kids that life is to be lived, it's to be enjoyed. There is so many incredible things to learn and discover. Get outdoors, go on adventures, get to know where you live. Okay, we're
Yes.
back home. What are the books that are fascinating to you? Let's read those. What are the subjects that you're into? So like right now, I have a 16-year-old who knows everything about the Civil War. She's taught herself. Her birthday wish in the last 2 years is for us to go up to Pennsylvania to go to Gettysburg. I mean,
Love
that's her
that.
wish. It's not to go to the mall. It's not, can you get me these new, whatever, shoes or whatever. It's, can we go to Gettysburg? And for that child, since she was 5 years old, when she was 5 years old, she asked for an Abraham Lincoln book. And that kind of set it off. And so when I look at her development over the years, I have given her that freedom. She knows that I trust her. I check in. We have plenty of accountability so that I can say, hey, how are you doing on that project? What do you need from me? Do you need more books at the library? Whatever it is there a course you want to start online? But my sole role in this child-led learning is to be the helper and to be the mentor, but to let her have the wings to fly. It's not for me to say, okay, it's American history time. Everybody get your textbooks. I'm going to bore you to death so that you never want to learn about this.
Right. And so you
And
don't
so it's
care.
been
Yeah.
exactly. So it's been her transformation. And so she spends literally hours a day learning, and she's really into military history, actually. That's kind of become her niche
So
over the
cool.
years. And so it's really amazing. And, it's like many other homeschoolers, when you're with an adult and you're talking about something, my teenager, and I know yours too, Janae, can have a full conversation with adult because they haven't had that restriction of public school and they haven't been taught from the public school system, well, you're quiet until somebody asks you to talk and you just need to be quiet all day with kids that are your age. So going back to my point a couple of minutes ago, what I saw in child-led learning and unschooling is blessing my kids with the benefit of seeing real life experiences, having real life skills and
Mhm.
responsibilities, and through that, having incredible confidence, having accountability, learning to have habits to live a good life, health habits, knowing how to read a book, knowing how to obtain information when they're interested about something, how to set a goal, how to fry an egg, whatever it is, but giving my kids skills at a younger age for real happiness and for real thriving. If you look statistically at the high schoolers that we're graduating in our country, it is absolutely pathetic. And the scores are getting worse and worse. And I'm not even talking about academics because frankly, watching society and how kids are in school and who they're becoming when they leave, I could care less about academics. Kids aren't even doing well with academics in high school. They don't
Oh,
have social skills. They don't know what they're going to do with their life. They have no skills for living a well-framed life moving forward. And so
no.
I think that's one of the beauties of this unschooling approach is real life. And you're going on
Mhm.
a trip, you plan the trip with your family, you assign the teenager, hey, why don't you look into the places that we want to stop? These are the places that we're going to be going. That's your assignment. You give the 10-year-old this job. Hey, why don't you take care of these things? It's saying we are doing life together as a family, and you better believe that this is going to be the most incredible 18 years of your life. We're doing it together. When there's something hard, we're going to work through it together. When there's a challenge, we come together, we talk about it. We're going to teach you skills for dealing with stress. We're going to teach you skills for saving money for something that you want to do or starting a business.
Yes.
It's saying there's very little that I frankly believe that is good coming out of the public school. I mean, and Janae, when you and I were in school, it was like I went to school, I turned out fine, right?
Yeah.
You can't use that excuse nowadays at all. If you were to see the messages I get from women 20, 30 a day, kids exposed to terrible things in third grade. Um, I mean, I can tell you there are so many people that I know of who all around the country whose kids are going to therapy just to get through the day at high school. So that's when I would say there's a red flag.
Yes.
If you don't make a change, then you're setting your child up for a lot of healing through their adult years.
Well, and I think it's interesting. My daughter, Katie, who's 15, went to a birthday party of her friends from public school. And she came home and she said, Mom, I'm the only person, I was the only person at the party who's not on anxiety and depression medication and not seeing a
Oh my
therapist,
gosh.
and, and I was like, you're 15, like, are you kidding me?
Mm.
But one thing too, that I wanted to bring up because, well, a couple things. First, when I met your kids, like I've seen them on Instagram and I thought, oh, they'd probably like they're a lot like my kids.
Hmm.
And there's still this sweetness and this innocence about them. Not they're not naive, but there's
Yeah,
this just the sweetness. But when I met them, yeah, they full on have adult conversations, and they weren't weird. And I think we think that, oh, if we homeschool, if our kids spend a lot of time with the family, that they're going to be weird. But the reality is, have you met the parents? Like, look at how the parents
exactly.
are.
Right, right, right. Well, that's funny you bring that up, Janae. Just one quick thing. This is a theory that I figured out years ago, Janae. I can think of odd people that homeschool. I can think of odd families that go to public school. So it's what you're saying is true, and I don't mean that in an unkind way, but I have seen both sides, and a lot of it is just like it's parents, like we
Hmm.
have an influence. There are plenty of silly things that my kids get from me and they get from their dad. And so I think there is this incorrect stereotype that homeschoolers are odd. And I think that we don't even think to consider the odd kids that public school. I could
Right.
list about 30 people in my mind that I think are kind of odd that go to public school. So it's like that doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work
Right. Well,
anymore.
and especially nowadays. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that. Not going to go down that avenue with some of the stuff that the high school in our
Yes.
high schools in our district are dealing with here in Colorado. But
Yes. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, as you mentioned, like they're not leaving school prepared.
Yeah.
Oregon, just yesterday, I saw just kids can leave high school without having the basic fundamentals, that they don't need reading, writing, math to graduate.
What are they doing in school?
Probably learning politics. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna
Oh,
be
yeah.
honest,
Whatever the
so
agenda is right there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, whatever that school or teacher's agenda is in the classroom. But so it's interesting because I hear that all the time. Well, aren't you worried that they're not going to be prepared for life? Well, aren't you worried that in the system that's
Exactly.
already broken, that they're not going to be prepared for life when these kids are
Exactly.
coming out, not even, they're going, I need to go to college, but I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life, and I'm about to drop several grand to figure it out,
Exactly.
when we can help them younger to
I
naturally
totally
figure those things
agree.
out.
I totally agree.
So what would you, how would you describe like your a day in the life in the Shiffler home? What does that look like?
Yeah. So one of the things that I kind of figured out some years into our homeschooling, unschooling journey is that there were some like pillars that were essential for me. So from everything that I had read, and once again, I started homeschooling just based on like philosophies.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing like the Charlotte Mason thing or like where it tells me like everything to do, where I don't have
Yeah.
to think for myself. And so I was trying to like take the philosophies of like a lot of unstructured playtime, a lot of unstructured time to explore into interests that my kids were into. Um, and so just with experimenting, I kind of developed something that we do now, and I actually help moms with as well in my coaching program. But so what I like to do is we start our morning with their daily habits. So we say, my husband and I say, what, over the years, what are the things that we think are most important for our kids? And I'm not just talking about academics. Once again, we have this terrible brainwashing that like public school provides everything our kids need, which is honestly couldn't be further from the truth.
Right, right.
So we say, what are real life habits of like health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, intellectual health? What are the core things that we see that are really important for our kids from the ages 7 to 18? And let's build those into their morning habits, because heck, like my husband and I set ourselves up. We try to have that same discipline for our kids to emulate, which is we get up early, we do something, physical. We just moved to Naples to have more sunshine time. So it's like we have that expectation. We get outside in the sun every morning, writing in a journal, whatever it is. So we have a handful of things that we do for my kids do for their daily habits. And I would add in those daily habits, we also include the core academic things that are basic things that we do want our kids to have before they leave the house. And so we plug in a couple of those. We might rotate them
Mhm.
through the year. So one might be to do a little bit of math. And we're really not strict with math. We could talk about that later. I have a very strong opinion about that.
Well,
But
let's
like I
talk
said,
about it in a few minutes.
yes. So we want our kids to be good at writing. So they have writing each day. So they're either doing a journal, they might have a journal prompt, they might be doing practice cursive, whatever it is. So they have a little bit of habits that they do. And then the goal is, we know this statistically, you have the best energy focus first thing in the morning. So we have those habits set in the morning. We've done this for years. My older kids get up, they can just dive right in it. They might make like some herbal tea. They sit in our art room, which is our homeschooling room, and they just start working on whatever their habits are. It like might be to study their scriptures, to whatever it is. I know that my kids have been wanting to keep doing studying a language. So I've got a daughter learning French, one daughter learning Spanish, one daughter teaching herself Hindi. So they're all doing
That's
that in the
awesome.
morning. My younger kids have a more modified habit tracker of just starting their day, getting ready, going for a bike ride, blah, blah, blah. But once again, I am teaching them responsibility. Start strong with your day, get some physical exercise, etc. Now, once their habits are done, Janae, then pretty much they are completely free to live their life the rest of the day. So as they're younger, I am there more of the time to say, and I've been doing this for so long, I could tell you like 10 things that each of my kids are into. So I know what they're into. So during the day, they might jump in on work on a project that they've been working on. So for example, for my teenagers, right now, as we're doing this, my daughters are working on, I've got a daughter that's really interested in cephalopods. And so she's been researching that, illustrating them. She's got a couple websites she's been referring to. She's got a stack of books she got from the library, and she's literally on her own studying that and is self-propelling herself because she's motivated by it. So that's happening right now. My younger kids might need a little bit of help as they're exploring a topic, but guess what? For my younger kids, there's really play going on. There's so much learning and growth going on, as Peter Gray talks about in his book. That is where kids get to practice what they see. That's when I watch my 5-year-old cooking in her bedroom, in her play kitchen, because she sees me do that. Or when she's pretending to read because she sees her siblings do it. So that play is essential for our young kids. So really their day is open to that unstructured time. The cool thing is, as you follow this style of homeschooling, this child-led learning, as they're getting older and they have the skills for reading, they have the skills for writing. I like to teach my kids how to research safely online. They have we get about 70 books a week from the library that they're using in their personally designed studies. As you're teaching them skills, teach a man to fish instead of fishing for him. I am teaching them the skills to know how to solve problems, to how to, research something. Then around their tween years, they are on autopilot. So all of my older kids, I have identical twins that are 14, and then a daughter that's 16. Those three kids are my teens that are home right now. And so they are literally on autopilot. I trust them. I check in with them often. They have their own planner, and they have literally mapped out the day. Okay, today I'm going to learn this, I'm going to be outlining the alphabet in Hindi. I'm also going to be learning more about Indian history. And so they have literally mapped out the day. I'm going to have an hour of reading. So my one daughter is into like Western. She's reading like a Louis L'Amour book. She is learning all about all the equestrian things. So my older girls, because I started them on this path years ago, they are just literally doing their own thing all day, and they have parameters for themselves. We talk about this. We have a lot of trust in our family. They know reputable sites to use for research. And then we try to do accountability things. We do like a return and report each week or every couple of weeks where we all come together, including the parents. Remember, this is a family experience. It's not, well, you guys do your schooling and then we don't have any discipline. It's about teaching and modeling that behavior. So we will come together regularly. We call it return and report. Everybody comes and shares the things that they're learning. They might bring a stack of books that they've read and facts that they've learned. They might come and show us something that they've built. For my boys that are building or learning car engineering, they might share what they're learning. So once again, that's just another little nod to accountability. But
Love that.
So my older kids are very much on autopilot during the day. Like I said, they plan out their day. And then for my younger kids, we spend hours reading piles of books. So my 7-year-old is really into the Titanic. He's really into ships. My other son, who is just turned 11, is dyslexic. He and I read a lot of books to him. And then I help them with what we call project time. So whatever they're interested in, we try to get like a blank book so that they can take notes of things that they're learning. They can illustrate it. They can build projects off of that. But I would say that was a lot of information. I guess what I would say is
it's beautiful though.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I feel like I get really excited. So I try to keep that day as untouched for them as possible. So I kind of just watch my kids as they're getting older. My younger kids do a lot of playing once their habits are done. My older kids are ready to take the skills that they have of reading and writing. And they turn a lot of things that they're also learning into art, into starting a business. I mean, there's so many things that my kids have done because they had that time. They didn't have pressure. They didn't have the parent over them telling them exactly what to do. And then I would say the last step of our day, so daily habits, project time is that independent learning that my kids kind of run on their own or I can help them with. And then the third aspect we call clubs. So that is anything that I want to do with my kids. Once again, I love this about child-led learning is I don't have to copy public school. And that would like kill my joy, honestly.
Yeah.
And so if there's something
really
I want to
fast.
do, Exactly. So if there's something I want to teach my kids, if there's something I want to do with my kids, or if there's a topic that one or more of my kids are already into, we will turn it into a club. So what that means is in our week, if you were to look at our weekly schedule, we have my girls and I have decided to do a history club. We do that Monday afternoons. My teenage girls just pile in my room and I literally read history books, and then they on their own will pick a topic and then explore it, and then they'll share it for the next return and report. I'm not quizzing them. We're not doing crafts on it. Like, they spend hours doing their own research. They spend hours doing their own projects that we're just going to get to the meat of what they want, which we all really love history. I have a club with my younger kids. We're doing all of the Little House on the Prairie books, and we're doing some projects with that. And we're learning about Native Americans, and we're learning about, geography. But it's something that we all wanted to do together. So if there is a topic like that, we do it together. And then my last example is I step away usually on Friday mornings to work on my business, and so my husband takes over on mornings. And so
Mhm.
we had a family meeting and said, what things do you guys want to do with daddy? And, daddy, what are you doing with the kids? And so they made a list of clubs. So he does a music theory class because my girls want to know music theory. They do an American Heritage class, and then they do a research class where they're all going to like research a topic and then like share it together. So the sky is the limit with this style. And I love it because it maintains that light in our kids' eyes. That's the one thing that breaks my heart the most,
Mhm.
is working with moms that they watched and raised their beautiful child up through those, the years up until first grade, and then they send their child to school and that light has gone from their child's eyes. They can't move, they can't play, they have to, the teacher talks about getting them on a medication so they can sit through class.
Yeah.
Resources get shorter, they're pulling the arts out of school. It's like, how much joy can you suck out of our kids' lives, really?
As much as possible is the
Yeah,
objective. Is well, and I
yeah,
hear that from so many of the moms that I work with is when my daughter, I talked to this one mom earlier this week, and she said, when my daughter started school, almost immediately the light went out of her eyes. And she used that exact same term.
yeah,
And now she's 13, and she's like, and I'm trying to rekindle the
yes,
flame in her. And it's been so hard because, her self-esteem is broken. Her desire to learn
yes,
is broken. She doesn't even know what she likes, and
yes,
it just
yes.
breaks these kids. And so, and when I met your kids, like they were full of fire and opinions. That was one thing
Yeah.
that surprised me when we moved towards unschooling, is how opinionated my kids would get about the
Huh,
things
I
that they
love that.
liked.
Right,
So,
right.
but I loved it. The other thing that intrigued me when I met your kids was when they showed me their bear books. Um, and so for those of y'all who don't know what bear books are, they're just literally blank books, and the
Yeah,
company that sells them is called Bear, and they're blank
yeah,
white books, and you can fill them up.
yeah.
And the art of your kids, like it looked like professional artists had done it. and
Oh,
and there
thank
they
you.
had you written all these descriptions of the Greek gods and goddesses, and everything about Greece. And I was blown away. And then your boys bear books that were filled with cars and everything that there is to know about all these different cars. And my husband was like, holy cow, this is unbelievable. And so that was something that just it astounded me at how gifted, like, your kids had become, because you gave them the time to just
Yeah.
be and do. I love that.
Well, it's interesting, Janae, because I did a live back in February, um, when my daughter had graduated herself, and I kind of talked about her journey. And I had done some research online about um, what happens to people that choose the unschooling path. Kids that were unschooled, childhood learning,
Hmm.
all that. What happens when they're 18, 19, 20, 30, 40? And I found some unbelievable things. So if you just back up, I always tell my kids, you're so lucky. Like, if I could have not been in school and had this freedom to get really good at the things that I loved, I just can't imagine my life. And so hearing you talk about my kids, which is really sweet, I know for you, Janae, that your kids are the same in that you are giving them that trust and that freedom and saying, what do you need from me? I'm here to support you. Um, and I think when you do that, Janae, and it is so hard for people to understand this because how have we been trained? We've been trained that we are going to take your child, we're going to put them in public school. You
Mm-hmm.
have no control. We are going to decide what they're learning, and then we're going to spit them out when they're 18.
Yeah.
So this notion of child-led learning, which is we actually trust you as a child that you have interests and we're going to help you discover your interests. And yes, for those of you that are listening to this podcast that have your kids in the school system, or you've just pulled them out and you're wanting that light to return their eyes, I can promise you that it can return. It's going to take some
Yes.
work, but it
Yes.
comes from introducing to your child what was robbed from them when they went to public school, which is trust, 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 trust. The public
Mm-hmm.
school model, once again, this doesn't have to do with teachers. I know teachers do their best in the system, tells to children, we don't trust you. We have to tell you everything to do, so much so
Mm-hmm.
that you have to raise your hand to use the bathroom. But we know best, and you are not smart enough, old enough, whatever it is, to have any decision making in your life. So if you can break down all those limiting beliefs, which I definitely had to do when I started on my unschooling journey, the philosophy of unschooling was just like, there was just this fire within me and I didn't know how to do it. But like every day I just had to like listen to, it was really like everything that was the opposite of what my public school experience was, which was, okay, I'm going to give them time. I'm going to give them real tools like real art supplies, and I'm going to get them a real professional whittling set, and I'm going to get them a real axe because they want to learn how to cut wood. And so I'm going to do all these things that popular society says, what are you doing? And doing that and looking back 15 years to where we are now, back to what you were saying, Janae, children that are raised in a child-led learning environment become experts in multiple
Mm-hmm.
things because they were trusted, because they have the tools, and really, thirdly, because they have that time. So my oldest daughter, who is at college now, I just think of her experience. She was like my experiment. I remember years into this thinking like, I really might be ruining my daughter. But Janae, like that motherly intuition is so powerful. I just felt like, no, you got to keep doing this. You've got to find a way to
Yeah.
make this approach work. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels right. And so I stayed on that journey. When I look at her life, when I look at her interest in music, so she can play the piano by ear. She never learned fully how to read music. So she would start to play her piano by ear. She started to compose music. So one year, once again, going back to instead of just like getting her clothes for Christmas, my kids are gifted real tools at Christmas and birthday.
Yes.
So
I
one
love that.
Christmas, we gifted her a real MIDI keyboard and like earphones. And she had like real music composition software. And this was like when she was 14. She had the interest and taught herself how to play guitar from some computer app. So then she started to take these courses online. There's a great program, program called Coursera, and it has great accredited like college courses that you can take, when you're not in college. So she's taking all these classes from psychology to philosophy. She starts taking music theory classes at 14 and 15. Um, and so she starts to get really good at composing music. So fast forward, the day before she flew away from our house to go to college out west, she released her first song that she wrote and composed, and it was released on Spotify. And that moment was just, it was like everything had come together. Like all of my fears from like 15 years ago that maybe I'm ruining her. Maybe I should put her on the bus. Maybe I should do what all the other homeschooling moms are doing even and just stay on that path, that secure path. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe if I do that, then she'll turn out. But guess what? She will turn out like everybody else. And maybe I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so when I heard, and she sent me and my husband a text when she had just released this song, and it was just all those years had come together. And I just thought, we did it. Like we followed our heart. That sounds so cliche, but we followed what felt so right, that our kids will show up when we trust them. Our kids want to take responsibility of their lives. they don't want to sit and have us tell them what to do all day. And when we give them those tools and that freedom and that time, they do tremendous things. I have 4 kids from the ages of 14 to 18 that all have their own online business. They are experts in their own field, and they know things that I don't know. And it's because that trust had to happen. And I really had to break down all those limiting beliefs of what school had to look like. And my last thing, Janae, is that with this approach to life, you have so much more fun because you're living life. If we go on road trips all the time, we say, oh, you know what? There's something better going on today. We're going to skip any of our plans that we had. And so it's teaching our kids to be flexible and to just see the incredible opportunities as they come.
I love that. Well, and I want to include the link to below in the show notes of your daughter's song because it is so beautiful. It is so
Oh,
beautiful.
thanks, Janae.
So I heard it and it made me, I teared up, and she's not even my daughter. I met her once, and I'm like, this is beautiful. So, and talk to me, because I hear a lot of parents go, yeah, but they'll never get into college if they choose their own path. But yet here you are.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And I would say I had that public school mentality for like so many years when I started this, like, this feels right. Like my kids are all like thriving and progressing, and they know how to do all these life skills and things are great. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, but what if they don't know calculus when they're 18? Or what if they can't get into college? So that was like a real fear. And so I did do my homework, Janae. And so I think one of the things that I tell moms is, if your child wants to get into college, and I will say a little disclaimer, follow any of the most successful people in the world. And right now they're saying, and it's increasing, you don't have to have college. Yeah. If you want to be a doctor, of course, if you want to do this and that, and I understand that there's a place for that, but we live in a day and age where you can learn, you can become an expert, like Elon Musk pretty much has said in some different conversations online. I don't care if you have a high school diploma. I don't care if you go to college. If you know what I need you to know to work for me, I will hire you. And I love that. We have the World Wide Web that you can become an expert in anything. So anyway, going back to the college fear that I think a lot of people have. So for my daughter, I knew she had this dream university she wanted to go to. And so because of that, at like a young age, around the age of 14, and like every year, I would call the university and say, we homeschool a very unique way. And I'm thinking they don't even know what unschooling is. I'm not even going to like bore them. But I say, my kids put a lot of times into the things that they're really into. And I would kind of explain how we do things. And so I would just call regularly and say, what is it that you're looking for? And I will say to your audience, most universities have a homeschooling expert in their admissions. So you can call them. And that's just a very liberating thing. The second thing, one of the blessings from COVID is that a lot of schools have opened up their eyes to SAT, ACT. What are they good for?
Nothing.
I did great. Yeah. I got good grades in high school. I just did what I was told. Horrible on the ACT. So it's like, why are we doing this? Plus, I really disagree with like testing. It's like nowhere is it emulated in the real world. So like, I don't make my kids do testing anyway. So that was the other thing I found out. Yes. So the second thing that's really great for parents to know is call your university, talk to the homeschooling specialist, say, are you a university that requires SAT, ACT? And so thankfully for my daughter, for a while, they had expected it. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to have to do this. But because of COVID, and I think a lot of people in the country couldn't get to testing centers or whatever, a lot of schools have dropped that, which I think is great.
I do too.
Anyway, so that's great. Yep. So her university dropped that. And so I said, okay, what does she need? And then I said, based on the fact that she is really smart in all the things that she's done, she's very independent, all these different things. What are you looking for? What are you looking for a homeschooler that's applying to your university? And so for her particular school, it was either this many hours of an accredited high school, which I was like, I really don't want to do that. Or
not happening.
the path which I recommend to a lot of parents, which is a lot of schools say, or they can have 24 credit hours at an accredited college. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, we'll do that. I would much rather you have credit and be doing higher level classes
Yep.
in the things that you want to learn anyway. So for that daughter, she'd already done 2 years taking any of the classes that you want through the app I told you called Coursera. It's about $200 a year. It's brilliant. So she was able to start taking classes, as you're getting older and you're wanting more meat. And she's once again designing her whole day. She was interested in the arts, history, philosophy. She taught herself some Latin, all of those things she got from Coursera. So then she's 16. And we're like, okay, let's start this 24 hours so that you can apply to your school. So I will never forget the night. We were living in Virginia. It was like 9 o'clock at night. Our younger kids were in bed. And she's so responsible. I mean, like, we've raised her to, like, hey, let me know if you need my help. But, like, she gets her own job. She does all these own
Mm-hmm.
things on her own. Once again, something that it's lost in our society right
Mm-hmm.
now with our youth is that initiative. And so she came into our room. She had her laptop and she's like, okay, I just wrote my, what is it called? You have to turn in to,
The application or the essay?
no, I can't think of the word. Okay, transcript. Okay,
Oh,
because
yeah,
she's
yeah, yes,
never
yes, yes.
taken high school classes. She hasn't done any of that. She's taken like one standardized test that she had to when we lived in Pennsylvania. And I was pretty much like, I don't care how you do on it, just do it. And so
Yeah.
this was just this cool moment. She was 16. She comes in her room. She's like, I just wrote my whole transcript. So she wrote her own transcript. It wasn't me. She had taken all of her own studies that she had curated herself. So she had been studying so many topics on her own, from textbooks, online courses, etc. So she plugs in, which is a real thing you guys can do, especially if you're doing child-led learning or unschooling. She wrote her own transcript. There are lots of
Love it.
guides online that kind of tell you, like, okay, and it was this many credit hours. And she just applied how many months she'd been doing it, or years. So she writes her whole transcript. It's the first time I've seen it, which is very much like her. She's done all the work. And so she literally had my husband sign it. So we literally graduated her in 5 minutes. She had self-curated her whole education.
I
And then the
love that.
next day started a community college, Nova, which is like Northern Virginia Community College. She started that the next day as a 16-year-old, did her 24 credit hours. And this is what's really cool. And once again, I share this because it's not bragging. This is essential for you to know that the public school system is broken enough to think that this can't happen. So my daughter did the 24 credit hours, having never taken a class in a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
never done any of those things, and got on the dean's list. So what does that tell me? It goes back to the core principle of child-led learning, which is when a child or a teenager wants it badly enough, they're no different than us as adults, they will do what it takes. So for my daughter to get on the dean's list, she had to look up and learn how to write a bibliography. She had to go online and find out how to write like a 10-page paper. So that's what's fascinating to me with this whole approach, is when your kid wants something badly enough, they do the work. She never even came to me and said, well, how do I do this? So
Yeah,
that's
she
what I
figured it
love
out.
about this. Yeah, she figured it
Yeah.
out. So so then she applied to her dream school, got in, and it's a really hard school to get into, but it's actually harder to get in as a transfer student. And she got in. So it was a really special moment, honestly, Janae, because I felt like I couldn't take any of the credit. Like, she had done the work. This whole approach to homeschooling is saying, you as the child are in the driver's seat. What do you want for your life? And one of the coolest things, Janae, when I talk to her every day, is that she is on fire there. When I went off to
I
college,
love
I'm
that.
like trying to figure out, like, well, I have to cook for myself now, and I have to like do my own laundry, and then I have to do like college classes, and everybody else is staying up late. What do I do? And so that's what's fascinating. She's like, oh my gosh, the coolest part, like, I'm keeping up on all my classes. But like the coolest part, she's like, is like, I'm involved in like all the entrepreneurial clubs, and there's like an entrepreneurial like women's club, and they have like, I've met all these business owners and I talk to them afterwards. So once again, it goes back to, we are designed as human beings to have this curiosity and this fire within us. So why is it any different for our 8-year-old
Right.
or our 16-year-old? they have this fire within them to learn more, to do more, to become something. They have this fire in them that says, if I want this badly enough, I will discipline my day. You know, my 14-year-old twins have an Etsy shop. They make these beautiful, masterful tapestries. They taught
Oh, they're
themselves
so
from
beautiful.
watching a couple YouTube channels. And so because of that, they discipline themselves in their day, and they like fit time into their day to do that. And they're starting a business with that to like teach youth how to do it. So it just goes back to that principle and sharing about my daughter getting into college, that as we keep that fire within our children, they will flourish. And I can promise you they will flourish beyond what you can even imagine as their
Yeah.
parent.
Well, and I think the coolest thing too is that like she took the initiative on her own. You as a parent gave her all those tools, all those years growing up, and then she steps into adulthood
Yeah.
naturally on her own, not going, oh my gosh, now I'm 18, now I'm on my own, and now I have to
Yeah.
she like it was the very natural thing that happened prior to public school
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
which is what
Yeah.
they used to do, like
Yeah.
guiding them into adulthood, which I think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's talk
And
about math.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to add one thing with what you were saying, which I love about homeschooling. And then taking it one more step, I love about that child-led learning approach, which is I refuse to do all the housework and let them
Mhm.
do all the fun. And for them, fun is learning. And so that's one of the other things that I've tied into our home life, where we work together. Like at a certain age,
Mhm.
my kids do their own laundry. At a certain age, my child takes over the whole kitchen. So at a young age, they know how to cook, they know how to do things. So kind of fast forwarding. So when my daughter went off to college, she knew how to do all that. And that was one of the things she
Yeah.
was actually the most excited about, was cooking for herself. So that's the beauty of homeschooling, is you get to call the shots. You get to create this vivid vision of what would our ideal life look like. If I could push all of the preconceived notions of what public school is, maybe you do your homeschooling like all in the afternoon and the evening. Maybe you've just had a baby and you do your homeschooling in the evening with your kids and you're out having an adventure every day. I love that about the freedom you have in homeschooling.
I do too. I love that. Let's switch
Okay,
gears a little bit
math.
and talk about
Math.
math. Because and
Yes.
I did an episode just on math because I'm like, do we really need algebra to survive? I even put it on Facebook. I'm like, tell me,
Yeah.
anybody out there, who when have you used geometry, algebra 2, calculus? And people are like,
Yes.
I use it here. And I'm like, no, the computer uses it
Yeah,
there. You just
exactly.
type in the form, like you just type in the numbers, right?
Exactly.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about math and what you do for math, what that looks like, and your philosophies on that.
Yeah, I love that topic. So I think, like you were saying, the bigger picture is, what are the fields that require math?
Mhm.
If you need tons of math, then that makes sense. So, but if you don't need that, if your child isn't going to be an engineer or whatever it is, and that child doesn't necessarily need that advanced math, then you might want to do something like my husband and I did early on when we started this approach. And it was really just a philosophy that I kind of put legs under the table of that philosophy. My husband and I had this talk because I was pretty much like, I refuse to live this philosophy of homeschooling, of unschooling, in trusting my child and giving them the wings to fly, and then feeling the stress that, like, we have this beautiful day, and then like there's this stress at like 5 o'clock every evening, we've got to do math. And so what
And
we did
math.
is we
Yeah.
just, yes, yeah. And so we just decided early on, because we talk a lot together as a family. And so we had a conversation. My husband and I had a conversation first, and then we talked to our kids. But the conversation we had was, okay, let's dissect our lives as adults. What is the math that we use every day? I pretty much use math in baking. I use my calculator on my phone a ton. I use math when I sew. I use math a couple places, right? And so that was our decision. It was like, if we are living this, raising our kids with this philosophy that learning is to be desired, and we're going to give you that freedom, then we want our kids to have a certain amount of math to get through life, right? Of math, but beyond that, we don't care. And so that's what our kids know. Like, we are not strict about doing math every day. I talk about this on my coaching calls, which is, I think, really good for moms to hear. we go through seasons where we haven't done math for months and months and months. And then we're like, okay, well, let's get back and we'll do a little bit of math in the morning. I try to have my husband take that over, and he might do it with the teenagers for a little bit and then do it with my boys. But what's the goal? By the time they leave my house, they have enough math that they need. And when I look at my daughter, who's 18, she has all the math she needs to get by. She didn't put any time into advanced math. She didn't need it. She's probably doing music composition for her major. And so she had to pick a math class at her university. And it's so telling what she picked because it's so life skills oriented, which is the way we raised her, which is it's a family finance class, and she's
I love
acing
that.
it. So that tells me that we're making our kids bored out of their minds, not only in public school, but even in the homeschooling setting by having these really crazy expectations for what. So that's what I would do if I were you and you've just started homeschooling. Decide what math is important and then lower your expectations. If they have that math by the time they leave the house, great. And guess what? If you have an annoying aunt or uncle that like to quiz your child, just say, you know what, we're really tired of it. You can quiz them on a topic of their interest. Like, why don't you quiz my daughter on every year during the Civil War and she can tell you exactly what happened, you know? It's like, let's get over this math obsession, you know? And then my last thing, Janae, is if one of my kids, like I'm thinking my son, who's getting really into car engineering, and there's actually a real car designer who I love. We follow him on YouTube. He designed the Mini Cooper. He designed all these cars that I know of since like I'm reading all the car books with my boys. He just started a car designing course. And so we're going to start doing that. So if he goes into that, if my son goes down that path of needing that additional math, I already told my kids, if you need advanced math that I don't have the brain or even want to do with you, I will happily pay a tutor to do that, you know, later in life. And just one quick plug for that, Janae. I love this story. There was an unschooler 10 years ago that wanted to get into Juilliard. He didn't have his math. He was this incredible musician. So his parents hired a math for 3 months, Janae. 3 months, he got his entire 12 years of math. Like story done.
Which
It's like,
I was just saying, I've heard several stories like that where it's like once they're ready and if they have to have it, they find a reason to do it, and then they're like, bam,
yes,
it's done.
exactly. Yeah. So if they
It's
need
done.
it, I've told my kids, we'll hire somebody. You get 3 months, you'll get all the math you need. You can get into your, you know, university. And that's just a good reminder
Yeah,
that when the child's ready, they soak in that information so much better. So that's my theory on math.
I love it.
We do it off and on when it works, and we're doing just fine. I
Yeah.
do not obsess over it at all.
Which is great. And I think that's the one subject that most parents coming out of the public school system are like,
Yes.
what do I have to teach? I
Yes.
have my 11-year-old is taking an algebra class just because he likes it. He's like,
Yeah.
can I please take
Yeah.
an algebra?
That's
And I'm like,
cool.
sure. But the other kids, I'm like, oh, if you don't
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
you've got enough. Like, my daughter did come home. She's working on a fix and flip with my husband right now. And they went to, Lowe's to pick up a bunch of stuff for the contractors. And she came home and she's like, Mom, I just learned some stuff about decimals and percentages that I don't ever remember learning in public school. And I'm sure I must have, but it's really cool. And I think and I'm like, she's like, do you know if you take the percent and then move it over twice, that's the decimal? I'm like, right. Yeah. And she's like, amazing. And yet she went to public school. She
Yes.
learned that in public
Because it
school,
was out
but
of context, Janae.
yeah,
School is
totally
out
out
of
of context.
context. Yeah.
And now that it's in context, she'll never forget
Yes.
it because
Yes.
she's like, I was sitting there cooking dinner. She's like, it was amazing. I I don't think I ever learned that. I'm like, you did, but you didn't because it didn't go into long-term
Right.
memory, so it
Right.
doesn't matter anyway.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your coaching program because so I started the coaching program, I think right when you first started it. I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
did.
I
Yes.
want to get better at unschooling, and I was intrigued by the systems because I again, where I live there's not a lot of
Yeah.
unschoolers. Um Lots of school at home, lots of Charlotte Masoners, but not a lot of unschoolers. And so I was intrigued because of the systems that you had in place that I'm like beautiful, like and family meetings and daily chef and things like that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that that could still is
Yeah.
construed as unschooling.
Yeah.
Unschooling is not just not
Yes.
schooling and
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
free wild
Yeah. Yeah.
children
Yeah.
on their own and
Yeah.
loincloths, right?
Yes.
So playing video games literally all
Yes.
day. Yeah, not happening.
Yeah.
Um, talk about how you started doing empowered homeschooling and what that looks like and why you started doing it
Yeah.
and the results. So lots of loaded
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, that's good. So, um, like I said before, I had started this whole style of homeschool just because I had read all the right books and I couldn't push it away, Janae. I couldn't get it out of my
Mhm.
mind. It was like, this sounds crazy and nobody else is doing it, but like, I have to do this. And so
Yeah.
I started it, and I'm a super organized, structured person. And that's one of the big myths about unschooling is, oh, it's for the mom that's just like, watching soap operas all day. I don't even know if they do soap operas anymore. I don't know,
Yeah, I
binging
have
on
no idea.
Netflix, and her kids are just like you were saying, like watching video games. And so there is this negative idea of unschooling where it's like, I don't even know any unschoolers that are like this negative, idea. Um, but there's this idea that it's so hands off, then how could it benefit the child? So I think that's all false, because if you were to
Yeah.
walk in my house and see our day today, we have plenty of structure because I need
Mhm.
structure. And
Mhm.
frankly, kids need structure. They need to rely on certain things. They need to have certain things set in motion to know how to show up, etc. And so years ago, I kind of just started organically systematizing what I thought worked really well for us. And it was those three things I talked about, the daily habits, the project time, clubs, kind of some of the core of our day. And so I began systematizing that. And then I wanted to have an experience with my family where they were learning life skills now compared to like just waiting in their, when they're off on their own. And
Mhm.
so we really prioritize the family. And when there are issues or when there's something to discuss, we come together and have these family meetings regularly. So there are lots of parts that I have systematized. So that was one of the reasons I started this empowered homeschool coaching program, because, like I said, I have um, lots of moms that reach out to me over the years. How do you do this? And how do you do this? And I get like 50 DMs a day. And Janae, I have 7 of my own kids, and I am not going to
Right.
sacrifice having a fun day with them to like spend an hour answering them, how exactly we live out our day and how to implement this philosophy and how to troubleshoot and all of those things. And so that's why I started this program. And so one part of it is a course. And so I go into detail how to do really what we've been doing for 15 years.
Mhm.
But before we even do that, like the whole first section is really breaking down all your false beliefs, all your limiting beliefs, all the things that are hurting your homeschooling now because you were in public school, because your kids were in public school. So it's breaking down those limiting beliefs, recreating this beautiful, exciting, thriving, vivid vision of what you want, and then the steps on building in that, putting the structure in place, and then just building off of that. And so that's what the program is. And then there's also a community, which is one of the things that I never had.
Yeah.
I did this approach, and it was so hard. I am a people person. I'm a very emotional person, and they were really rough, lonely years, Shanae. And now I see
Yeah.
where we are. We've got about 75 women in the group from all around the world. And they're even coming in on our coaching calls every Friday from Australia and Spain and Mexico and Puerto Rico. And it's so beautiful to see women that are saying, I want something new. I want something better for my kids. I want
Mhm.
help with this. I want help implementing it. I'm afraid. I don't feel like I have the skills to do it. And then coming together and saying, we're here for you. We all want something better, and we want to raise kids that are empowered and that are autonomous and independent and
Yes.
responsible. So it's really a beautiful thing, just having that community with it.
Well, and one of the things that I've appreciated too is even on the coaching calls, because Nicole is my coach. And so
Yeah.
in the in the coaching calls that there is permission to be vulnerable and go, this is one thing that was a real struggle this week. This was
Yeah.
something, and having the other mom say, "Oh, yeah, no, you're good
Hmm.
and it's
Yes.
okay."
Yes.
and here's some ideas, to
Yeah.
help with that. And that's something that I think is so beautiful, is because
Yep.
people can be vulnerable and not be afraid of judgment.
Yeah.
Because if I can't talk to public school parents about when I'm having my struggles or
Yeah.
doubts or things like that, because they go, well, you should put your kids back in
Yeah.
public school. And then, like, so much for
Exactly.
talking to you,
Yes.
so,
And
so
women
that's something
need that.
I've loved. They do. They need that we need that reassurance and that we're doing okay. And the courses are beautiful. Like all the different modules are
Oh,
beautiful and
thanks,
they're
Janae.
aesthetically beautiful too, just
Thank
on the side.
you. I
I
work
just think
hard
they're
on
beautiful.
that.
So
Well,
yeah,
going
they're
back to what you
beautiful.
were saying, with some of those coaching calls and that vulnerability, I think choosing to homeschool, I love meeting people that say they homeschool because I immediately connect with them. I can immediately
Hmm.
read so many things about them. They're willing to do something outside the box. They're willing to pull away
Hmm.
from mainstream. And that is hard and it takes courage. And so when somebody says that they homeschool, I immediately just want to like hug them and say, you can do this. And there are people that have gone before. There's so many ways to do it. I just want to fill them
Yeah.
with positivity. And so for any of your listeners that are wanting to take that step, I just want to remind you there are so many ways to do it, but having that support group is essential. And I just on our call, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, somebody opened up how they were feeling guilty that while they're homeschooling, and my whole program is about doing this child-led learning approach and how that looks and what that feels like. And anyway, this wonderful woman, Megan, in our coaching was talking about how they had this family business, and for 2 weeks, she's got to like really hunker down and get some business stuff done, and she was feeling bad. And so we talked, and there were other moms contributing and saying, this is the best thing that you can give your kids in this example, and showing that you're going to, set them up during the day with these activities, but that they get to watch mommy for these next couple weeks pull something beautiful together and that they get to be a part of this family business. And so I love the flexibility of this style of homeschooling so much that if you've just had a baby, if you've just moved, you totally adjust your homeschooling, you lower your expectations, and you continue to thrive.
I love that. I love that. And that's empowered homeschooling, which I can include
Yeah.
in the show notes if
Yeah.
people are interested in learning more, as well as
Yeah. And
the
online,
link to Nicole. Yeah.
it's just nicolescoaching.com. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I'll make sure to include that. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I guess I would say for those of you that are scared and you're afraid of the unknown, you will find more security and peace the more you step out into the unknown. Take that risk and just watch your kids stepping into more trust and more freedom. And I can just promise you, you are going to start to live a happier life with your kids. This is not just I homeschool for my kids. I homeschool so that I can have the most incredible 18 years with my kids.
Yeah.
And so you get to be the author of your one incredible life with your children.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the encouragement, and taking the time out of your very busy day and about to
Definitely.
go on a trip tomorrow.
I know,
Thank
Janae,
you
I
so
love
much.
you. Thanks for having me on.
I love you back. Thank you so much. And to you mamas, keep going. You got this. We'll talk to you next week.
Definitely.